Discussion on timely issues surrounding veterans affairs, but also timeless questions of advocacy and leadership. Since our nation's inception nearly 250 years ago, millions of men and women have donned the cloth of the U.S. Armed Services. Thousands of them have died in the line of arms, but many thousands more have returned home, forming the body of military veterans who now comprise about 7% of the total U.S. population. However, despite their selfless service, this nation has often failed to support its veterans, whose rates of unemployment, homelessness, post-traumatic stress disorder, service-related health issues, and suicide are far higher than the general population, especially since the wars in Vietnam, the Gulf, and the Middle East. Luckily, many people are tirelessly advocating to change this, and we are honored to be joined by one of them this afternoon. Our guest tonight, Mr. Jon Stewart, is a comedian, former host of The Daily Show, current host of the late-night current affairs show The Problem with Jon Stewart, and a tireless advocate for both 9/11 first responders and American military veterans. Through his leadership, Stewart played an instrumental role in the recent passage of the Honoring Our Pact Act, which expanded healthcare access and funding to veterans exposed to toxic substances during their service. Our moderators this evening are Soren Duggan and Grace Park. Mr. Duggan served 9 years in the U.S. Army, operating in multifaceted intelligence collection roles for U.S. intelligence agencies and completing combat deployments to Afghanistan and Syria. He is currently an MPA candidate at the Harvard Kennedy School, where he is the co-chair of the Veterans Impact Initiative and a fellow with Harvard Center for Public Leadership. Grace Park served as a signal officer in the U.S. Army, serving overseas in Djibouti, Tunisia, Italy, and South Korea before coming to HKS. They are currently an MPP candidate at the Harvard Kennedy School, a Black Family Fellow with the Center for Public Leadership, and a Graham T. Allison Fellow at the Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs. Thank you all very much for joining us, and I hope you enjoy tonight's discussion.
Push it! There we go. Hello. Hello. Please, sit. Thank you. Hello. How are you? Nice to see you. Hello. Hello.
All right, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you very much, John, for agreeing to do this. As Ryan said, my name is Soren. I am the co-chair of the Veterans Impact Initiative here at Harvard, alongside Abia Khan, who is an ROTC Army cadet at the college. This initiative was started a few years ago by the current IOP director, Seti Warren, a Navy veteran himself, to focus on bridging the civilian and military divide, both here on campus and in a broader sense. I personally don't think that there's a better way to start to bridge that divide than by talking about veterans issues, but through a civilian lens, which is what we've come here to do today, because I also don't think there's anybody better suited to discuss that topic than you, John. You've used your platform over the last 2 decades to focus on veterans and 9/11 first responder issues. In a lot of the sense, you've made our issues your own issues. You've used your platform to get 2 bills now passed through Congress. Getting 1 passed, I think, is a pretty rare feat today in American politics. You somehow managed to do it twice, which is wildly impressive.
Let me stop you right there if I could. I'm a hero. I really, I hadn't thought of it that way before, but as you were reading that introduction, I thought to myself, I'm awesome. No, honestly, it's my pleasure to be here, and my honor. And so I'm excited to be able to talk about this stuff with both of you guys and with the group here, the larger group. Well, and the advice I gave you earlier, yeah, they seem nice. Forget what I said.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? So I think we want to all start off the conversation by asking what first got you interested in the 9/11 first responders, their families, and veterans issues.
Okay.
What about this issue caught your eye ahead of all the others?
Well, 9/11 and the veterans issues are inexplicably linked. As many of you know, I lived in Lower Manhattan on 9/11, so obviously I was able to see firsthand what the first responders, not just the first responders, but volunteers that went down after 9/11, the spirit of relentless compassion that was present on that, the pain in people searching for their loved ones permeated all of life down there. Forget about even just the sensory overwhelming nature of the smell of it, the feel of it, the sound of it, all of it really coalesced down there. And so it was obviously life-changing. And when everyone came down to do their best to reestablish a sense of normalcy, I was so appreciative of everything that they were giving and so devastated by what we were all feeling that when I found out the struggles that they were having based on this selfless giving that they had done, I tried to turn that fury into something positive. Ended up just being fury, but I tried to turn it into something positive. But it all got wrapped up also in the veterans issues because I had a show at the time that was commentary on things I agreed with and a couple of things I didn't, like the war. And so I really felt an obligation to inform myself. So I wanted to not be talking out of my ass, which is probably could have been a great name for the show. So I started going down to Walter Reed and meeting with people who had just gotten back from being wounded. And I was really taken by the insight, the empathy, the strength, the resilience of the people that I was meeting. And this maybe gets to that civilian-military divide that you talked about, is the military is opaque in this country to a large extent, and probably purposefully so, because a government can't manipulate things that people are watching. They can't pay attention to it in the same way. And the military is really cloistered from view. And spending time with them, I got to really see their sacrifice, but also their quality. And I think it actually angered me more to understand that, because what you begin to understand is that the value of this country, in terms of its military, in terms of all of it, is in its human capital. The human capital that we expend in the military is enormous. And once you begin to recognize that, you become even more certain that the decisions that are made that affect their lives and their families' lives are sometimes made frivolously and without concern for the cost to that human capital. And so in educating myself about that and going over to Iraq and going to Afghanistan and spending time in those places really helped inform this previously opaque, like New York Jew, Lower Manhattan, like we don't get to see that all the time. So going over and doing that was eye-opening in a good way.
On that same note, you spent a lot of time at Walter Reed, and having been around wounded warriors, I think it's a fairly jarring experience for anybody, no matter how much experience or how much exposure you have to that.
Right.
But burn pits themselves are a fairly niche issue outside of veteran circles. I'm not even sure a lot of people that don't know veterans or don't know people who've deployed understand them or know what they are, know why they're a danger, know why they've affected people. How did you start to learn about the burn pits themselves and the effect that they were having on veterans? And if you could, for a second, can you explain to the audience what they are?
Sure.
In your learnings.
So you're in Cambridge, you probably, as responsible as you are to the environment, you probably still like make a lot of garbage and shit. So imagine if when you did that, they took that area where all your little restaurants are and they just dug it down and took everything that you throw away and add in armaments and body parts and blood and radioactive materials and all those things, and they just piled it up in the center there. They'd leave the IHOP, I think.
I hope so.
Even a burn pit needs something fresh and fruity. And so within that, and you know, the proximity is actually quite the issue. So imagine they just dug that whole area out and everything that you get rid of, they put in there. Trucks, everything. And they douse it with jet fuel or diesel. And they let it burn 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you slept next to it. My guess is you'd wake up with a headache at some point. They wouldn't allow it here, but it's what they allowed over there. And it's what they put our service members through. And they didn't have to. It's run by contractors. And the contractor, in this case, was Kellogg Brown and Root. And they save money by doing that. There is incinerators that you can install there. They had them, they just didn't put them in. And so they exposed our service members, forgetting about like the actual people who live there, who still have to deal with it. And whatever happened, and the health effects, and they came home and they pretended that this wouldn't have an effect. And I ask you to just think about that if it were here. I mean, I'm assuming at Harvard, complaints get registered about almost everything pretty quickly. I'm guessing. How long do you think that would go before the outrage would consume this place? They did it for years. And I have the documentation that says they knew it was killing people. And they did nothing. And so that was the basis of it. I can remember when we flew into Kandahar, I thought the base had been hit. Black smoke was pouring out of this area in Kandahar. And I was like, you know, I don't know if you guys know this, but like, I'm not the bravest guy. So like, I'm already on a C-130, which is a piece of shit.
It's a regular plane, there's just like no seats.
Yeah.
Well, it's like if you took an olive can and everybody's like, shouldn't we like put something else in that? You're like, no, they'll be fine. Because we flew over there in like a C-17, which was a giant olive can.
The jets, at least. That are,
and it sucked.
Yeah.
And I remember them saying like, do you have a sweater and also shorts? And I was like, what? And they're like, it gets super hot and then super cold.
Yeah.
And then when we got on the C-130, I remember thinking, I owe the C-17 an apology. By the way, did you used to make people do the combat landing where you go straight up and then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Why wouldn't they tell me that they were about to do that?
It is fun to watch people go through it if you don't want them. We don't have a lot of fun out there.
No, it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think before we did the landing, my hair was brown. And my underwear was white. All right, so the point is this. Imagine allowing that in the United States. Now imagine the people, you know, one of the things that has always struck me about the veterans issues is that this country is performative in its patriotism to the fullest extent. There is no one we honor more than the fighting men and women. We honor them at football games. You get 10% off appetizers at Chili's. Like, there is nothing that we won't do for our fighting men and women except fucking take care of them. And it's astonishing to me that we allow that in this country, that we can perform this patriotism, and yet the truth of how we care for them and how we deal with it is absurdly the opposite. And so that was also part of what engaged me in that issue, in bridging that gap.
So on that same note, the PACT Act is passed. The literature is coming out. People are getting on the burn pit registry now. They're getting the care that they deserve. The families are getting the compensation that they deserve from the ones that have passed away. What's next for veterans issues? Do you have something else in the horizon that you'd like to focus on, or others to focus on? Do you think there's a new topic that we should spend our time on?
So it's never enough, is that what you're saying?
It's never enough. We want more. 15% off.
Bastard. All right. We'll get it done.
Before you answer, can I,
Yes.
can I also just call out Soren? He's being very humble right now. We don't really have to look that far to find an example of someone who experienced the burn pits that you're talking about.
Right.
Soren is much more of a combat veteran than I am, if you know what I mean. I also wanted to open that opportunity up for you to talk about, just to humanize the issue a little bit.
Oh, your experience with it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I am fortunately very healthy, at least from the burn pit side. Others, people, Sam's laughing. It's not, No,
they get it. They get it.
Yeah.
You've got problems. We get it.
No, I remember getting there. I was 22 when I got to Afghanistan, and they built our burn pit in our small camp. The wind blows one way in this valley. It blows one way 365 days a year, and they built this burn pit upwind from that wind, and it blew every single day onto this camp, some days thicker than others. And we would wake up some days in the morning, and the inside of our room would be smoky from this stuff. And thankfully, I and everybody else I know are healthy from it, and we're fine. But you'd be hard-pressed, I think, at least 2010 to 2018, or 2004 to 2018, to find a veteran that hasn't gone to Afghanistan or Iraq that hasn't had pretty significant exposure to these burn pits.
Right.
And so your advocacy is really hit close to home for a lot of veterans. Luckily, most of us are healthy, but a lot have come home with pretty serious issues from it.
Yeah, it's been tough. And sadly, ground zero at 9/11 is kind of the OG burn pit. I mean, it is one of the reasons why we got involved in this is the illnesses that they were seeing through these burn pits rung so familiar. It was as though we were reliving a nightmare that we had already been through, including the same type of fight. But when you expose people to these carcinogens and dioxins, and by the way, so when we talk about veterans issues and what's next, the truth is it's a continuum. And it's not just a continuum for veterans. They might be, as they would say, the tip of the spear. But the truth is, it's the lowest hanging fruit of a society to be able to take care of the basic needs of the most venerated individuals in our society who are suffering because of the heroism and sacrifice that they gave to this country, right? If we can't do it for them, what chance do the rest of us have? This is the lowest stepping stone. And as they go through that continuum of neglect, we always have the money for the war. But we have to re-examine the total cost. And the total cost is not just to the bombs and the guns and the mercenaries and everything else that's on there. It's to the health and well-being of the people that we put on the front lines, not just for their physical health, but their mental well-being. There is moral injury. I mean, we talked about that just, backstage. We were talking about there are 100,000 interpreters and their families, or really fewer interpreters, but their families, that worked to defend and protect the coalition effort in Afghanistan, and we left them there. And the people that are fighting to get them are the veterans. They're the ones who suffer the pain of my friend, a person I trusted. We left to defend themselves against the Taliban. And so it's very easy. Everybody's lives are complicated and we all have a lot to do, but we have to start knocking down problems. There has to be a punch list that can get us to that point where we're more concerned about the moral injury of our veterans, food insecurity of our children, the lack of good education in this country, than a few people who want to transition their genders, and that's what occupies everybody's attention, and that's what we fight about. We have to get our priorities straight and stop making up shit to put upon people that aren't bothering anybody. And that's the truth of where we're at. And that's when you say, what's next? It's getting us to see the larger picture. We're all connected. Their issues are connected to our issues. They're the same as us. We can't treat them as something different. So we just have to get better at taking care of each other, you know, in that sense. Not to get too, like, dark.
It's fine, we'll bring it back.
All right.
So I think, you know, this is a policy school.
Then you guys do it.
Yeah, to bring it
I'm
back
sorry.
to the people.
I thought you were looking at me to do it, but
We just want you to pass all the bills for us, and then maybe we'll get to it. Because I think that something that we learn about, and my policy professor is sitting in the audience too. We talk not just.
Are you being
passing.
graded on this? Am I being graded on this? By the way, Mary Beth says hello. All right.
And we always talk about not just passing the actual policy, but the implementation side of that. And you've mentioned, especially with this PACT Act stuff, that there's a sort of lag time between the Capitol and between the American people.
Sure.
So my question to you is, what can we do to sort of shorten that timeline to make the benefits more accessible to the people?
Boy, that's a great question. And unfortunately, there are a lot of moving pieces in Washington, and you have to get buy-in from each one of them. You know, Washington is really ultimately like a very insulated place whose stated goal of being responsive to the people is really undercut by the way that the place operates. And generally, it operates to the status quo. In Washington, they will do almost anything to not have to do almost anything. It takes a certain relentless group of committed and unified, dynamic people to bring not just shame, but relentless shame that they don't think will go away. Because they know the news cycle as well as anybody. And for the most part, they feel like they can wait it out. And they'll always look for little ways to back off of doing the right thing or something that might cost some extra money or things along that line. But what you don't realize too is the administrative state itself is, look, democracy is analog. We live in a digital world. So the agility that you would want from a democracy in terms of being able to take care of urgent issues is often not present. So you have to provide the catalyst, and you have to provide the fuel. And if you don't, I'll give you an example. So when I first got involved in the burn pit issue, there were a lot of different groups working towards doing something for veterans healthcare, but they were working disparately, right? There was no real unification. Manchin Sullivan wanted their thing to go. Tillis wanted his team bill to go. Ruiz wanted his respiratory bill to go. Everybody had their little piece of the puzzle, but nobody was talking to each other really, and none of it was really going anywhere. So we got together. The first meeting I ever had down there was with a woman named Rosie Torres from Burn Pits 360, who's the one who got me involved in it. Her husband was exposed in Balad. He had respiratory problems. He was fired from being a Texas state rank, and they were not able to get anything. They lost everything. He was suicidal. They came to John Field and myself, who works for Feel Good Foundation, did on the 9/11 stuff, and that's how I got involved. So we went down and we had a meeting with a coalition of veterans in Congress, Democrats and Republicans. It's sort of like the For Honor coalition, I think it's called.
With honor, I think.
With honor, I think that's right. And we laid out the problem to educate them on what was going on. And they were all really amenable. And afterwards, one of the Congress people came up to me and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, this is really important to us, but we're really busy. So if we're going to do this, you're probably going to have to write it." Let that soak in for a second. So if you ever wonder why all these bills are written by lobbyists, That's why. They're real busy. So you don't see that in how a bill becomes a law, but that's how it happens. So that's what we did. We went back to a room and we gathered a meeting. This was about a month later, of all the veteran service organizations that we could find. IAVA, Wounded Warrior, Vietnam Veterans of America, DAV, TAPS, everybody that we could think of in this space that understood the urgency. I mean, people that we were advocating with were dying. We got a representative from the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. We got a representative from the House Veterans Affairs Committee. We all got in a room back when people could still get in rooms. And we went around the room and we said, what will fix this? And what came out of that was the skeletal foundation of the PACT Act, right? Comprehensive, dealt with training, dealt with diagnostics, dealt with all those things. Then for the next 2 hours, I watched this group negotiate against themselves. Every veterans group. I got to tell you something. So we've been dealing with Bozeman and Rounds, and they're not going to go for presumption. If you put presumption in this bill, won't presumption, though, help this bill? Presumption that if you were exposed to these chemicals, chances are these are the diseases that could come up. It would absolutely help. But you want us to take it out. Yeah, we don't think we can get it. And we went around the room and I watched them negotiate against themselves. Not because that's not what would work or what would help them, but it's because that's what they thought the system would allow them. And the main purpose of our advocacy in the early days was convincing them to take a swing. To take a swing at what would do it. Because the system was incentivized for them to just get what they thought they could get. And here's how incestuous and weird it gets. I proposed in that first meeting, because the big thing was cost. They're never going to pay the money. They paid trillions for the war, and they didn't have a pay for that. Yeah, but they're never going to pay the money. So I suggested we do what's called a war profiteers tax. That Raytheon and McDonnell Douglas and Lockheed Martin, who are making $400 billion a year, put that in perspective, the entire State Department and USAID budget is 55. We pay more money every year to Lockheed Martin than we pay for the entirety of our diplomatic mission in this world. That doesn't tell you why this country is in a constant state of war like nothing else will. 2% on that would have paid for everything that we need for the PACT Act. Everybody was super excited. Yes, those villains. Driving home from DC back to Jersey, phone rings. Hey man, we got to take that profiteers tax out. Do you know why? Do you have any idea why we might have had to do that? Who pays for the VSO budget? Who is the biggest sponsor of all of these veterans groups? Raytheon, McDonnell Douglas, Lockheed Martin. They pay $1 million to save $1 billion. And they've captured all those groups. Not completely, but they're the patrons. So I'm only saying this to give you a sense of you're about to walk into a system that exists to beat the shit out of your idealism. And I'm here to tell you, do not let them do that. Do not let them make you believe that what needs to be done isn't possible. It is. But you need to know what you're walking into. It's very important.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to skip to a more relevant question now, covering that.
Sagittarius.
Thank you. Do you have a rising sign, or just Sagittarius?
That is his rising.
Great. I love the Raytheon to astrology transfer. The term patriot has really taken on different meanings over the last decade, but it's a term to a lot of veterans that still means a lot, despite being taken by groups recently that seem to be fairly antithetical to the term patriotism and to what a lot of veterans believe it to be. So in that sense, you've spoken about patriotism here tonight. Do you consider yourself a patriot, and what does patriotism mean to you?
Wow, that's a good question. You know, I always really shy away from the types of labels that are reductive. I consider myself someone who loves the possibilities and potential and fullness of this country deeply. And I fully believe in its ability to grow and evolve in a wonderful way. But I also understand that we're always dancing on the head of a pin. And those types of emotions can be corrupted and utilized for all sorts of nefarious purposes. It's the duality. Since we're at Harvard, we can talk about this. It's the duality of man. We discovered the atom, and then we discovered we could split it. And if we split it this way, we could power the entire world. And if we split it this way, we could blow it up. And which one did we try first? And that's kind of how it goes. And so you need to love where you live. You need to believe in where you live. It's so important for any sense of optimism for the future. And, my idol in all of this was George Carlin, and he used to say, I love the individual, but I get real nervous with groups, because then they start putting on hats and then the whole thing goes to hell. And that's kind of how I believe about, unfortunately, what we do with labels like that is we use them as a cudgel to tell people that they're not part of what's known as real America. And so, one of the things that I remember in my anger at speaking before Congress on 9/11 was, I just want to make it clear that, because one of our biggest problems was the Senate and the Congress was dealing with it as a New York issue. What didn't happen in real America. And I tried to remind them that bin Laden didn't shout death to Tribeca. He shouted death to America. And if America doesn't understand that, we exist in multitudes, and that the actual promise of America is in its diverse communities and all that we're not a confederation of states. We tried that for a couple of years, and everybody's like, I don't think that's going to work. So, unfortunately, labels like that are too easily used to dismiss or to remove people's opinions or to not listen to them. So I really try not to ascribe to it. I don't suggest I'm a patriot. What I do suggest is I care deeply. And by the way, like for the men and women who are in our service, you're often called upon to do policy that I thoroughly disagree with. But I will never not have the backs of the individuals that go out and prosecute those policies. I will always fight to get those policies changed and to give more respect to the sacrifices and selflessness of the people that are executing them. But I will always separate those things, as they do, really well. So what was the question?
Patriotism.
No, I was going to say Mets fan.
Ooh. Yeah.
That's where I qualify as. But it's tough. And you guys know, I watch people when they deal with everybody in the military and say, "Thank you for your service," and then they walk away, and you just think like that. I don't know if you know anything, but you didn't do anything just there. You made yourself feel better, and I hope it was worth it.
Yeah, it's kind of a soapbox of mine, of people thinking Veterans for Service it makes it feel like it's okay then to just send people to go off to war. It's like, well, send them a thank you note, so it's all good.
There you go.
Yeah.
care package.
So I think we would be remiss to bring you onto the forum without discussing some of your talk shows. Your new show, The Problem with Jon Stewart, great name.
Yeah, I didn't realize what it would sound like when said out loud.
Yeah.
I should have put like a comma. I had the wrong punctuation on that thing.
I think it's the way I said it.
Oh, all right.
So, you started season 1 with these veterans issues that we've discussed today, but I actually want to draw attention to episode 1 of season 2. You talked about the gender binary, and you've also
Yes.
you've like briefly touched that on that today.
Yes.
I believe the direct quote that you used was, "There's a lot of non-binary shit happening between the binaries."
Yes.
I think if that's correct.
I'm so eloquent. I'm trying so hard to up my game here. I was going to go to Harvard, by the way, but they had like a test to get in. So yeah, I didn't. I like the town.
Well,
Sorry. Remember what I told you. Remember my advice.
that's right.
All right. I'll tell you guys at the end what my advice is.
Yeah, I'll let him tell you. I don't feel comfortable doing that. So for me, I identify as a non-binary veteran.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue of veterans issues and the gender binary, transgender issues, to me, these aren't disparate issues at all. Transgender people actually represent 2 to 3 times their own share of the population in the general public as they do in the military. And similar to that, transgender veterans die by suicide twice as likely as our cisgender veterans. So from your experience, I wanted to ask you, how can advocates like you and like some of the people in this room, how can we reach marginalized groups, especially when they're sort of embedded within already vulnerable populations like veterans?
Man, that's the secret sauce, and if we can figure that out, look, it's about the polarities that we deal in. People are generally tribal in nature, and I don't want to give the impression that I believe that like we can somehow overcome man's nature to a point where, I've always said like I really wish that we could get past the religious and racial and sexual identity issues that plague us and make us fight and go back to killing each other over proximity to water. I think that's the way to go. Fight over natural resources. But if you've ever been in the parking lot of like an Eagles-Giants game, people will fight about anything as long as their identity is fighting against a different identity. And it's really difficult to create an understanding and why there is such emotion that is locked into what people would consider the status quo or tradition or what they think they might be losing. And I think what I've come to is, I honestly think it's resource guarding. And I only know that because I have dogs. But what I hear most from people in the veteran space, and a lot of them are really conservative, and a lot of the conversations that I have with veterans when I'm in that space start with, I just want to let you know I don't agree with anything you say, but thank you. I think people feel like the other is getting something that they're not getting, and it's making their life harder. It's the flip side of the privilege argument. Man, my life's hard. I don't feel privileged by my sexuality or my race or my religion or any of those things. And yet, in my mind, all you have to do is walk over the border of the United States and Obama will give you a phone personally. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's a resentment that builds in people, real or not. That is that the out group is getting what the in group should be getting and isn't getting. And true or not, that has to be the place, I think, to start, which is to say that to view someone else's humanity doesn't diminish yours. It elevates it. If we invest in each other, there's always that, economic theory of a rising tide lifts all boats, and you think, yeah, if you have a fucking boat. But if you don't, you will drown. And that's what we have to look at each other as investments, not entitlements. Because an entitlement in this country is anything someone else is getting that you don't need. And as long as you don't need it, well, that's an entitlement. And I resent entitlements. What about when you need something? Hey, man, I work hard. And it's that mentality that splits people along gender, you know. It makes it more difficult, and it shouldn't be that way. It should, the obstacles, we all have enough obstacles as it is. Let's not create more of them. But man, I don't know how to ease that really primitive, I feel like it's a really primitive instinct in people. But I think the other side of it is we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk openly. You know, we've just gotten into this whole thing. I was on Colbert, we were talking about anti-Semitism. And you know, you can't believe the shit I've been taking on it, or the gender stuff. Because in this country now, if you talk about anything, like, you hear from everybody. We're all in that movie, What Women Want, where Mel Gibson gets ESP and like suddenly knows what everybody's, like, you know what everybody's thinking all the time about everything. And it's a real weight. Am I being fired? I could leave. I'm gonna go.
All right, that's the form for now.
But so what you bring up is, and it goes back to everything we're talking about. Veterans issues are trans issues, are poverty issues, are food insecurity issues, are mental health issues. We're all, you know, and we've got to start recognizing that.
Love it. This will be our last question before we turn over to the audience. If you guys want to line up behind the microphones, there are two here and then two up there as well. So my last question.
Sure.
Jon, now that the wars are largely over, veterans are returned home, almost all of them are back now. A lot of them hung up the uniforms. Grace and I somehow made it into Harvard and are here. Where do you see those veterans who are now no longer serving in uniform making an impact now that the wars are done?
Everywhere. Everywhere. And again, this country, you know, oftentimes we look at veterans issues like, hey, they served us and we need to help them because they've done so much for this country that let's help them. But what we're doing by not paying attention to them is cutting off an enormous foundation of human capital who are moved to service, moved to helping people. We did a veteran, it was called a Veterans Immersion Program at the show, where it was just a program. We'd get 24 veterans every kind of semester. We'd do it twice a year. And it was for veterans that were interested in production of television or those kinds of things. And they would come in, and it was designed, because it came out of, a gentleman called me and said, would you mentor a veteran? And I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, you know, make a couple of phone calls. And I was like, sure, that'll do nothing. So we tried to create a program. They would come in, they'd spend a week at the show in the immersion. And then one night a week, because these were grown people who had jobs, they would come in and meet with each department of the show for 7 weeks. And then at the end of that, we would do a job fair to bring in all kinds of people in the New York entertainment industry that might be looking to hire people. What struck me about the program wasn't necessarily the talent of these people. It was the insecurity. We spent a lot of time during that program convincing them that they and everything they've been through was valuable, that what they had done meant something. You know, I used to fuck around with them and say, like, yeah, you know, this is a tough business. And I don't know if you guys have the chops to, it's nerve-wracking. And it's fast-paced. And if shit goes south, we do another one tomorrow. To remind them that you know how to work as a team. You know how to work towards a goal. You know how to think on your feet. You really think you're less than the intern from Westchester? Who's here because their parents work in finance and they can afford to live in New York for the summer? Like, that's the thing that I think is so important, is to remind people of their value so that when we invest in them, they give back tenfold. This isn't charity. This isn't giving people a hand up. This is investing. And knowing that those investments, more often than not, will pay off. Getting folks that are temporarily disoriented or lost because their bearings, they've lost the camaraderie of their units, they've lost maybe some of their health, they've lost some of their moral standing sometimes in their minds. Getting them back to ground doesn't just help them. It means they can suddenly now be back doing what they do best, which is lifting us up. And that's the transition that I'd love to see be made in the veterans area, is the understanding that you're not broken. We are, for not understanding how to utilize those parts of yourself that are so valuable. And we're letting slip away, not you. So that's, I think ultimately that's where we have to find ourselves. What? No! I promised myself I would do this.
Okay, so for people who've been in the forum before, you know the drill, name, affiliation, Harvard University affiliation. Please end your question with a question mark and try not to go into a speech so everyone can get a chance
Can
to
I
ask
just
a
very
question.
quickly? I'd like you to end your question with a semicolon. If this is indeed Harvard. No. Pay attention to the rules, because otherwise we'll all get thrown out of here.
So we'll start with the first mic on the floor, my left, your right, and then we'll go up clockwise.
All right, my name's Sam Pressler. I'm an MPA student here. I am going to try not to cry as I ask this question. John, I'm a Jew from New Jersey who ended up going to
I've never heard of such a thing.
There's only 4
My
of us
God,
left.
sir. Hold on, let me take a picture.
I went to William Mary.
What? That's where I went. You're me.
And then I tried to befriend your college soccer coach, Al Albert, so that he can introduce us at one point. It's never happened until now.
All right.
I want to thank you as a hero for being...
Careful.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, just a reminder,
There's a question.
no speeches.
Oh, right. No speeches.
Where's the
There'll be-
semicolon?
All right.
So, because of you, I ended up seeing how you could be silly and still give a damn. And when I was in college, I ended up starting a nonprofit that does arts program with the veteran military community. I'm going to finish. I see you.
No, I know you're going to finish,
and
but are you going to finish with time for other people?
Your model of caring and being a civilian who can care for veterans is one of the things that enabled me to do that work and build what's now the largest military arts nonprofit in the country. So I want to thank you for being that moral role model.
Thank you for doing it.
I think my question for you is kind of tied to my experience kind of accompanying people with the pain of being in the service and leaving the service. How has that experience over the last 20 years being with people who've had such proximity to challenges shape you and shape the way that you show up in the world?
Well, thank you for the question. I think, the hardest thing about this has been, it's not the same as being in the military, but you form a group that's really mission focused, and you work together and you become a family, and then you lose some of them. And it's not the same as obviously losing them in battle, but, you know, Ray Pfeiffer, Louis Alvarez, Kate Thomas, Wesley Black, you know, these are people that I came to love, and losing them was heartbreaking, but also to see people running out of time, and they knew they were running out of time. Maybe that's the difference with the military, is they knew they were suffering from the effects of the things that we were trying to advocate for. To see people spending this incredibly valuable asset that they have, which was time, it was the most valuable thing that they had, to see them spending that in service of making sure that others wouldn't face the devastating road that they faced, gave me, you know, we talked earlier about the duality. That's the highest aspiration. People who, it's somebody giving their last dollar to someone who they think might need it more. That kind of selflessness informs and humbles anything else that you can do. Because you know that no matter what they spent to do that was more than you had in your wallet. And that's the part that I think for me, you know, that'll always be the honor of my life. Like, I'm a fucking comic. You know, I started in a basement in the village telling jokes, and yet I got to stand next to people who were dying and using their last breaths. Like Louis Alvarez, man, when we got out of that, he went to hospice that night. His liver shut down that night. And I got to sit next to him while he told his story to the people who supposedly care the most about him. You know, what an honor to be able to share that moment with him. You know, so that's what it is for me. That's for sure. Someone got a lighter question? I already did the Sagittarius joke. I can't. Do you got something there?
I have a later question, John.
All right. I'm a Jew from New Hampshire.
I'm actually also a Jew from New Jersey, John. Yeah, South Jersey.
We
though.
do control the media.
I know we do. It's true, John. We do control the media.
We do control the politics.
I'm a one out here at Harvard Law. Watch The Daily Show every day from elementary school to high school. Was so excited to see that you were here. Obsessed, John. Anyway, my question for you, John, is back when I used to watch your show, you used to mostly make fun of Fox News, Glenn Beck. You know, I just recently watched the Clive and Bundy clip and Sean Hannity, right? But nowadays we have Newsmax, we have InfoWars, we have all these crazy channels that make Fox News look like MSNBC. So I was wondering.
I failed.
Yeah. I wasn't going to go there, but I was going to say, what do you think about this balkanization in our media and how we are supposed to go on as a society when you have people watching Alex Jones that think that they're putting chemicals in our water to turn us gay or whatever Alex Jones said? It's true.
Easy.
Son of a bitch!
Yes.
I'd expect that from Yale. I know where I am. I know you people. So here's the honest answer about that is one that, unfortunately, that's another one that Generation Z is going to have to take care of. So this world does not easily handle evolutions in communications and media, from the Gutenberg press to radio. Radio unsettled and allowed fascists to spread messages that they never would have been able to spread. And did they cause World War II? Probably not, but they didn't help. And we are living through another one of those transitions where we have not quite adjusted to the pace, the cadence, the viciousness of this new method of communication. And I handle it much worse than my kids did. Their brains have, to me, it's still an alien presence that I don't know how to cook it. It's like I'm microwaving my brain. I think that younger people have an ability to place it in a context that is less vicious. It's why, if you look at who needs to be most deprogrammed in this country, it's old people. Old people are the ones that are most susceptible to this new type of programming. Their brains really aren't, and I'm as almost one of them. I understand why, because in this new environment, you never get to stand down. Provocation and urgency, the media model now is arson. If they can light it on fire, you won't leave. And the intensity of that, for people who are not accustomed to it, is brutal because we can't leave. And what it does to you is incessant toxicity that creates like metaphysical changes. People worried about the vaccine was changing their DNA. It's not. It's the television you're watching that told you not to take it. That's what's changing your DNA. And I don't think younger people will have that. I think we're going to find a better balance. But Elon Musk is a great example of this right now. Like, you can be great at Twitter, and you can own Twitter, but you can't do both. And we're all going to come to that. Like, this cycle is going to burn itself out. Because social media isn't a town square. A town square is a neutral space of competing ideas. Town squares don't have algorithms. Town squares don't recommend other crazy fuckers to follow. It's Times Square. I'm telling you, that's what it is. And if you came from Nebraska and went to Times Square, it would fuck you up. Badly. But if you live there after a while, you become desensitized and it no longer has the power that it has of divisiveness. That's where I think we have to go. We are being hit by something that is changing the way that we interact and feel. We have to recognize it and then adjust to it. And I think that will help with the balkanization. And I think it's already starting to ease.
Thank you for that question. We have time for one more. I think we'll take.
Believe me, I'm busy.
So thank you so much. This was so inspiring. My name is Gal Jacobi. I'm a mid-career student here in the Kennedy School. I'm a Jew from Israel, but that's easy.
Oh, I wanted to make sure. Only Jews can ask me questions. I was once in a place and an Irish tried to ask me a question. And trust me, I was like, No, go ahead.
So obviously in Israel, we are living in a very militaristic country, and so the whole how we treat our soldiers and veterans is very different. But I am here in the States and I see the veterans and I see the homeless veterans and I'm like, can't even handle that of how come this happens. So I wonder if you can speak a little bit about why this happens, why the US treats its veterans in this way, and does it it has any connections to any other core problems that the US has?
Oh. Thank you for that question. It's absolutely connected because the outcomes that you get are based on the inputs that you put in. So there are more lobbyists for weapons in Washington than there are congresspeople. That's just a fact. We spend $400 billion a year on defense contractors. That's a fact. The Defense Department's never, it's 30%, 35% of our discretionary budget because, boy, I don't want to get into the isms of it, but we are incentivized to profit off of pain. That's what we have. And we're not allowed to do anything about it. It's not like you could go, if you were exposed to a burn pit, and sue the contractor that exposed you. They're granted immunity. They're immune from lawsuits. They live in a lawless place. They are protected. You fought, you are not. They didn't. They were paid, and they're protected. And so a budget is just a list of priorities. It just shows you what a society cares about. And if we've got to go down there and fight for 15 years to get people who fought for this country, to get them, like, they developed glioblastoma and lung cancer, right? What's the worst thing that could happen? Maybe they got it from something else. So the worst outcome of taking care of our veterans is that you may have taken care of a soldier who fought for this country. You may have taken care of a brain cancer that they got somewhere else. That's the worst outcome. The system is incentivized to be adversarial to the people. They've set up a system to catch the 2.5% of people that are trying to get and game the system. And they make 97.5% of the people fight like motherfuckers on their own to be their own lawyers, doctors, advocates, and everything while they're trying to deal with their health, while they're trying to take care of their families. That's how the system is designed. We are getting the outcomes that we get because the system is designed for those outcomes. You have to design a better system. That's your charge in this world. To make the incentives of this system be the payoffs that we see, investments in people, investments in the broken areas. We should not be talking about anything in this country except the fact that 20% of our children live in poverty. Like, we're just upside down. Or those children just need better lobbyists. But that's the point. And so what you see happening to our veterans is the way our system is designed. That's the problem that we have in this country right now. I wanted to end on a high note. I wasn't a high note. So that's, you know, and that's why, and if I could just say this, like, thank you for allowing me access to your brains. Because I like, this country is held together by hundreds of really talented, hardworking legislative aides. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Like, I was down there. I hate to tell you this, your senators are dipshits. Like, truly voting on things that they don't know what they're voting on. And then making a comment to somebody on camera about the intricacies of it that are utterly, I had the privilege of watching this bill from birth to passage. I saw everything that it went through, every little methodology. I knew what I was talking about. And when I saw the matrix and I saw what the information is that the public is acting on, it's a completely different world. This country is held together by hundreds of first in, last out legislative aides. You are going to be those people. You are the glue, foundation, and everything. Trust me. What you're going to do will matter. You will matter. Fundamentally. So get a B at least. Or, obviously, if there's a curve, It doesn't matter.
So we actually have time for one more question.
Oh, all right.
We want to go over to the left wing over there.
Oh my God, you dressed up.
Yes!
Thank you.
All for you.
Thank you.
Well, hi, John. My name is Lap. I'm a junior here at the college, and I am a Buddhist from Minnesota.
Yeah, about that. You are now a Jew. All right, there you go. It's official.
So I wanted to ask you, because you've expressed your deep cynicism for the media in this country, especially
Not cynicism, idealism. Idealism tempered by disappointment. It's not cynicism. Cynicism is a feeling that, who cares, it doesn't matter, it's all broken. Idealism tinged with disappointment is you have a fucking opportunity. You have a mechanism that is an immune system that can help us. Help us. That's what it is.
Yeah. And so how...
That's my favorite thing ever. Ever. That is the best reaction I've ever gotten. Thank you. Can I tell you something?
Yes.
That's how my wife reacts. Same intonation. Yeah. So are you going to order? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. So, having been through the entire process, how did you manage to make the media work for you? And what advice would you give to us to help make the media work for us to get legislation passed?
So, that's a phenomenal question. They are easily manipulated. Do you have a dog? If you've ever had a dog, you know that they love treats and they love to chase things. That's the media. So what I do is I let them chase. They love to play. They do not like to fact check. What you need to do is get your own talk show. No, the media environment right now, 24-hour a day, 7 days a week media, social media, is all built for 9/11. It's all built for catastrophe. It's all built for earthquakes and tsunamis, and in the absence of that, they have to manufacture an urgency and a conflict. You can use their need against them. Who are the people in Congress that you know? You know Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know Lauren Boebert. You know Louis Gohmert. You know AOC. You know the stars, because media loves the stars. What you have to do when you think about policy is you have to make it relevant and urgent. You have to tell a story. Policy doesn't exist. And by the way, it'll help you be better policymakers, because what it forces you to do is connect it to need, connect it to people, connect it to something that you're fixing. It's all fucking Shark Tank. It's all you in front of them going, invest in this. This will change things. This will make things better. If you can bring that passion, if you can lift yourself out of the technocracy of it, you can make it live for people. And if you can make it live for people, you can make them join you in fighting for it. And your movement grows and it unifies and it makes a difference. And then obviously, there's all kinds of, ridiculous strategy involved in it. You have to know when to apply the pressure. One of the things that I think is really hard for advocacy is you don't know when to apply the pressure. And if you just apply pressure and you don't have anything to apply it against, it just dissipates. So one of the main things I tried to do with our group is go, give me a date, give me a person, and give me a purpose. Because then when I apply it, what am I doing? I'm up against something. And then now I'm starting to get traction, and it's starting to move something. If there's nothing here that I'm pushing against, I'm just doing this. And so don't forget that part of policy is purpose and strategy and narrative. Connect what you want to do to the people you're helping. Elevate it to storytelling. And if I may give you the last word, you know what to say.
Yeah.
Now we're working, baby! Now we're working together! You got this! That's the ticket. Good stuff. Yeah.
Jon, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being here.
No,
I think
my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Service comes in a lot of different forms, and it's not all uniformed. And I just, on behalf of the initiative here and the people here, we'd like to thank you for your service.
I'm
those that are there.
absolutely delighted, and it's an honor to be here. And I hope that Greg Kine, I'll stand up as well. Now, the only thing I do wonder is, and I don't know, do I also get the 10% off on the appetizers?
You do not. You do not.
All right, I knew it.
Sorry.
Thank you all very much for coming.